What if I told you there are plants that can count? Plants that can move fast enough to catch live prey? Plants that can survive being frozen solid, dried out completely, or even launched into space? Would you believe me? Because every single one of those things is real. Today we are looking at 10 plants with abilities so extraordinary, so strange, and so genuinely hard to believe that they almost feel like science fiction. These are not exaggerations. These are documented, scientifically studied abilities that plants have evolved over millions of years. And by the end of this video, you are going to look at the plant world in a completely different way. Stay with me to the very end, because number 10 on this list has an ability so strange that scientists themselves are still trying to fully understand how it works. Before we get into this incredible list, if you are new here, welcome. This channel is all about exploring the plant world in a way that is honest, fascinating, and genuinely useful. If you enjoy content like this, please hit that like button right now. It only takes a second, and it helps this video reach more people who would love it just as much as you do. And make sure you subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a new video. We post every single week, and I promise you, there is always something worth seeing. Okay, let us go to the video. Here is something most of us were taught without ever really questioning it. Plants are passive. They sit there, they grow slowly, they photosynthesize, and that is more or less the extent of what they do. Animals act. Plants simply exist. But that idea, as comforting and simple as it is, turns out to be deeply incomplete. Over the last few decades, plant scientists have discovered behaviors and abilities in plants that genuinely challenge what we thought we understood about what a plant even is. Plants communicate with each other through underground fungal networks and airborne chemical signals. Some plants can sense and respond to sound. Some can move fast enough to be seen with the naked eye. Some can survive conditions that would kill almost any animal on Earth. And some have abilities so strange that researchers are still actively studying exactly how they work. Understanding these abilities is not just fascinating trivia. It changes how we think about intelligence, about life, and about our place in the natural world. Plants have been quietly solving extraordinary problems for hundreds of millions of years, long before animals existed at all. So let us take a look at 10 of the most astonishing examples. 1. Venus flytrap, botanical name Dionea muscipula. Starting our list at number 1 is a plant with an ability that genuinely seems to break the rules of what a plant is supposed to do. It can count, and it can move fast enough to catch live prey in well under a second. This is the Venus flytrap. The Venus flytrap is a small, carnivorous plant native to the wetlands of North and South Carolina. Its leaves form a hinged trap lined with tiny trigger hairs. When an insect brushes against those hairs, the trap snaps shut in less than half a second, faster than the human eye can fully process, sealing the prey inside. Here is the truly extraordinary part. The plant requires the trigger hairs to be touched twice within about 20 seconds before it closes. This prevents it from wasting enormous amounts of energy on false alarms, like a raindrop or a piece of debris. In other words, this plant can count to 2. It has a basic form of short-term memory built entirely without a brain or nervous system. Key benefit. The Venus flytrap evolved this extraordinary ability because it grows in nutrient-poor, boggy soil where it cannot get enough nitrogen through its roots alone. By trapping and digesting insects, it supplements its diet in a way no ordinary plant can. As a houseplant, it is endlessly fascinating to grow and watch, and it makes a phenomenal educational plant for children and adults alike. Caution. Venus flytraps are notoriously tricky to keep alive long term. They need consistently moist, nutrient-poor soil, ideally pure sphagnum moss, only rainwater or distilled water, since tap water minerals will harm them, and several hours of direct sunlight daily. And please resist the urge to trigger the trap just to watch it close. Each trap can only close a limited number of times in its life before it stops working, so let it catch its own prey naturally. 2. Sensitive plant, botanical name, Mimosa pudica. Number 2 is a plant that reacts to the world around it in a way that looks almost like a startled animal. Touch it gently, and within a second, its leaves fold completely closed. This is the sensitive plant. Mimosa pudica is a low-growing perennial native to Central and South America, with delicate fern-like compound leaves. When touched, shaken, or exposed to heat, the leaflets rapidly fold inward, and the whole leaf droops downward, all within about 1 to 2 seconds. After several minutes of being left alone, the leaves slowly reopen, ready to react again. This movement, called thigmonesty, is achieved through rapid changes in water pressure inside specialized cells at the base of each leaflet, not through muscles or nerves. It is one of the fastest plant movements in the world, and it is genuinely mesmerizing to watch in person. Key benefit. Scientists believe this rapid folding response evolved as a defense mechanism, either to startle away small herbivorous insects or to make the plant look less appetizing and more wilted to larger grazing animals. As a houseplant, it is one of the most interactive and genuinely entertaining plants you can grow, particularly for children who are fascinated by science. It is also used in some research settings to study plant memory and learning, since studies have shown the plant can learn to stop reacting to repeated harmless stimuli. Caution. The sensitive plant prefers warm temperatures, bright light, and consistently moist soil. It does not tolerate frost and is usually grown as an annual or houseplant in cooler climates. While it is not generally considered dangerous, some sources note mild toxicity if ingested in large quantities, so it is best kept away from pets that like to chew on leaves. Also, resist touching it too often. Like the Venus flytrap, overstimulation uses up energy the plant needs for normal growth. 3. Resurrection plant, botanical name, Selaginella lepidophylla, also called the Rose of Jericho. Number 3 is a plant that appears to come back from the dead. Genuinely. You can dry it out completely until it looks like a dead, curled-up ball of brown twigs. Leave it that way for years, and then bring it fully back to life, simply by adding water. This is the resurrection plant. The resurrection plant is a small, fern-like species, native to the deserts of Mexico and the southwestern United States. When water becomes scarce, the plant curls its fronds tightly inward into a dense, dry ball, loses almost all of its internal moisture, and enters a state of complete dormancy. In this state, it can look and feel exactly like a dead, dried-up plant, and it can remain that way for years, even decades, in some recorded cases. Then, the moment it receives water again, something extraordinary happens. Within just a few hours, the fronds unfurl, the plant turns green again, and it resumes normal growth as if nothing ever happened. Key benefit. The resurrection plant has become a genuinely important subject in scientific research, particularly in the study of drought tolerance and desiccation resistance. Scientists are studying the specific proteins and sugars this plant produces to survive total dehydration, with the hope of one day applying that knowledge to make crop plants more resilient to drought. As a novelty plant, it is also wonderfully popular, often sold as a curiosity that people can revive again and again in a bowl of water. Caution. There is very little risk involved with this plant. It is not toxic and requires almost no maintenance in its dormant state. If you want to keep it actively growing rather than cycling it through dormancy, place it in a shallow dish with a small amount of water, in bright indirect light, and mist it regularly. Allow it to dry out occasionally to mimic its natural cycle, since constant moisture is actually not what it is adapted for. 4. Dodder, botanical name, Cuscuta species. Number 4 is a plant with an ability that sounds like it belongs to an animal, not a plant. It can smell, and it uses that sense of smell to actively hunt down the exact plant it wants to feed on. This is dodder. Dodder is a parasitic, leafless vine that appears as thin, tangled, orange or yellow threads wrapping around other plants. It contains little to no chlorophyll, meaning it cannot photosynthesize effectively on its own, so it survives almost entirely by stealing nutrients from host plants. What is genuinely astonishing is how it finds those hosts in the first place. Research has shown that dodder seedlings can detect airborne chemical compounds released by nearby plants, and they will actively grow toward the host plant they prefer, even when that plant is several inches away and the dodder cannot see, touch, or otherwise sense it through any conventional means. In experiments, dodder seedlings consistently grew toward tomato plants over wheat, demonstrating a genuine preference based purely on scent. Key benefit. As fascinating as it is, dodder is more of a scientific marvel than a garden ally. It is studied extensively by plant scientists interested in plant communication, chemical signaling, and the biology of parasitism. Understanding how dodder locates its prey has informed broader research into how all plants sense their chemical environment, which has applications in agriculture and pest management. Caution. For gardeners, dodder is generally considered a serious agricultural pest rather than something to cultivate. It can quickly smother and severely weaken or kill host plants by draining their nutrients and blocking light. If you find dodder growing in your garden, it should be removed promptly, ideally before it sets seed, as the seeds can remain viable in soil for many years. This is a plant to know about and respect, not necessarily one to grow. 5. Giant pitcher plant, botanical name Nepenthes attenborough. Number 5 takes carnivorous plants to an entirely different scale. This pitcher plant is so large that it has been documented digesting small rodents. This is the giant pitcher plant, named after the broadcaster Sir David Attenborough. Discovered relatively recently on a remote mountaintop in the Philippines, this species of pitcher plant produces traps, called pitchers, large enough to hold over 1.5 liters of liquid. The rim of the pitcher is slippery, and the inside walls are coated in a waxy substance that prey cannot grip. Insects and even small animals that wander in to investigate the sweet nectar at the rim lose their footing, fall into the digestive fluid below, and are slowly broken down and absorbed by the plant. While most pitcher plants feed on insects, this particular species has been documented with the remains of shrews and rats inside its pitchers, making it one of the very few plants in the world known to occasionally consume small mammals. Key benefit. Pitcher plants in general, including the smaller and more commonly cultivated Nepenthes species, are extraordinary additions to a greenhouse or warm, humid indoor space. They are visually dramatic, genuinely low maintenance once their needs are understood, and provide natural pest control by trapping insects. They have also become hugely popular among houseplant collectors, specifically because of how alien and impressive they look. Caution. The giant pitcher plant specifically is a protected, endangered species found only in a tiny area of the Philippines and is not something you can ethically or legally obtain. However, many other Nepenthes species are widely available for home cultivation. They require high humidity, bright indirect light, and importantly, pure water, such as rainwater or distilled water, since tap water minerals can harm them over time. They are not difficult once you understand they want consistently warm, humid, jungle-like conditions. 6. Haleakala silversword, botanical name Argyroxiphium sanguescens. Number 6 is a plant that survives in one of the most extreme environments on Earth, a volcanic summit where temperatures swing from scorching daytime heat to freezing nighttime cold, intense ultraviolet radiation, and almost no rainfall. And then, after waiting decades, it does something spectacular exactly once. This is the Haleakala silversword. The silversword grows only on the upper slopes of the Haleakala volcano in Hawaii. In an environment so harsh, it has been compared to the surface of the moon. The plant forms a striking, low rosette of narrow, silver-gray leaves covered in fine hairs that reflect intense sunlight and trap a thin layer of insulating air to protect against both extreme heat and cold. The silversword can live for 15 to 90 years, depending on the specific population, simply existing as this low silver rosette. Then, just once in its entire lifetime, it sends up a single dramatic flowering stalk that can reach 6 feet tall, covered in hundreds of small reddish-purple flowers. After this single spectacular bloom, the plant dies. Key benefit. The silversword is considered one of the most extraordinary examples of evolutionary adaptation in the plant kingdom. Having evolved in complete isolation on the Hawaiian Islands from a single ancestral species related to the California tarweed. It is a major symbol of conservation success, having been brought back from the brink of extinction through dedicated protection efforts. For botanists and conservationists, it represents one of the most powerful stories of survival against extraordinary odds anywhere in nature. Caution. The silversword is a protected, endangered species and cannot legally be collected or grown from the wild. It is not available for home cultivation and exists almost exclusively in its native habitat on Haleakala, where strict conservation rules protect it from trampling and disturbance by visitors. If you ever visit Maui, stay strictly on marked paths around these plants. A single careless step can damage a plant that has been growing for 50 years before it ever gets the chance to bloom. 7. Great Basin bristlecone pine, botanical name Pinus longeva. Number 7 holds a record that is genuinely hard to wrap your mind around. The oldest known living individual tree on the entire planet is a member of this species, and it was alive before the pyramids of Egypt were built. This is the bristlecone pine. The bristlecone pine grows in the harsh, high-altitude mountain ranges of the western United States, often in poor, rocky soil at elevations where almost nothing else can survive. The oldest confirmed individual, nicknamed Methuselah, growing in the White Mountains of California, is estimated to be over 4,800 years old. There are unconfirmed reports of even older individuals nearby. The trees themselves often look as ancient as they are, twisted, gnarled, with much of the trunk appearing dead or bare wood, while a thin strip of living bark continues to feed a small portion of green foliage. This survival strategy, where the tree essentially lets most of itself die while keeping a narrow lifeline alive, is part of what allows it to live for thousands of years. Key benefit: bristlecone pines are invaluable to climate scientists because they grow extremely slowly and live for so long. Their growth rings provide an unbroken climate record stretching back thousands of years, helping researchers understand historical droughts, volcanic events, and climate patterns long before written records existed. They are also a profound symbol of resilience and patience, thriving specifically in conditions of adversity rather than abundance. Caution: bristlecone pines grow incredibly slowly, sometimes adding less than an inch of trunk growth per century in the harshest conditions, which is part of how they achieve such longevity. They are not practical for the average garden, and the locations of the very oldest specimens are deliberately kept undisclosed to protect them from damage or vandalism. If you want to experience them, visit one of the protected groves, such as the ancient bristlecone pine forest in California, and treat every tree there with the reverence it has earned over millennia. 8. Giant water lily, botanical name Victoria amazonica. Number 8 produces leaves so large and so strong that they can support the weight of an actual human child standing on top of them, floating on water. This is the giant water lily of the Amazon. The giant water lily produces enormous circular leaves, often reaching 8 to 10 feet across, with upturned rims that look like the edge of a giant floating tray. The underside of each leaf is reinforced with a remarkable structural network of ribs that distribute weight evenly across the entire surface, similar in principle to architectural truss systems used in modern engineering. This structure is so effective that the leaves can support roughly 70 pounds of evenly distributed weight without sinking. At night, the plant produces large, fragrant white flowers that change to a deep pink over the course of 2 nights, and the flowers actually generate their own internal heat to help disperse their scent and attract specific beetle pollinators, trapping them overnight before releasing them covered in pollen. Key benefit: the structural design of the giant water lily leaf was so impressive that it directly inspired the design of the Crystal Palace, the enormous glass and iron exhibition hall built in London in 1851. The architect, Joseph Paxton, studied the rib structure of the lily leaf and used the same engineering principles in his building design. This is one of the most remarkable examples in history of nature, directly inspiring human architecture and engineering. Caution: the giant water lily is not suitable for a typical garden pond. It requires a large, warm, tropical water feature, consistent temperatures of at least 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and significant space to spread, often needing a pond at least 15 feet across to reach its full size. It is grown successfully in botanical gardens and large tropical water features around the world. For most home gardeners, it is a plant to admire on a visit to a botanical garden rather than to grow at home, though smaller, hardy water lily relatives can bring a touch of that same magic to an ordinary garden pond. 9. Wollemi pine, botanical name Wollemia nobilis. Number 9 is a tree that scientists believed had been extinct for over 2 million years, known only from fossil records, until it was discovered alive and well in a hidden canyon in Australia in 1994. This is the Wollemi pine, sometimes called a living fossil. The Wollemi pine is an ancient species of conifer with unusual fern-like foliage and distinctive dark brown bark that has a bubbly, almost chocolate-like texture, completely unlike any other living tree. when it was discovered growing in a remote, narrow canyon in the Wollemi National Park in New South Wales, Australia, by a park ranger exploring an area few people had ever visited. It caused a sensation in the scientific community. This was a tree that had only ever been known from fossils dating back to the age of the dinosaurs. Fewer than 100 mature trees exist in the wild today, growing in a single hidden location that remains undisclosed to the public to protect the species from disease and disturbance. Key benefit. Following its discovery, an extraordinary conservation effort was launched to propagate the Wollemi pine and distribute it to botanical gardens and private gardeners around the world, both to protect the species from extinction through a single catastrophic event in its native canyon, and to satisfy enormous public fascination with owning a piece of living prehistory. Remarkably, this means that you can actually buy and grow a Wollemi pine in your own garden today, something that would have seemed completely impossible before 1994. Caution. The Wollemi pine is reasonably adaptable and can be grown outdoors in temperate climates or in a large container in cooler regions, brought inside during the coldest months. It prefers partial shade, particularly when young and well-drained, slightly acidic soil. While it is sold commercially, by purchasing one, you are directly supporting the global conservation effort to protect this remarkable species, since a portion of sales typically goes toward ongoing protection of the wild population. 10. Hydnora africana. And here we are at number 10. The plant I mentioned at the very start. The one with an ability so strange that scientists are still working to fully understand it. This is Hydnora africana, and it might be one of the strangest organisms classified as a plant anywhere on Earth. Hydnora africana, native to southern Africa, has no leaves, no stems, no roots in the way we typically understand them, and no chlorophyll whatsoever. It lives almost entirely underground as a parasite attached to the roots of certain shrubs, drawing all of its nutrients and water directly from its host. The only part of the plant that ever appears above ground is its strange, fleshy flower, which pushes up through the soil looking like something between a sea anemone and a piece of raw meat. The flower emits a powerful odor of dung or decay to attract dung beetles and carrion beetles, which crawl inside the flower to investigate, become temporarily trapped, and emerge later covered in pollen, having unknowingly pollinated the plant. The entire above-ground appearance of this organism looks so unlike a typical flowering plant that early observers struggled to classify it at all. Key benefit. The true power of Hydnora africana lies in just how extreme its adaptation to a parasitic, mostly subterranean lifestyle has become. It has abandoned almost every structure we associate with plants: leaves, visible stems, chlorophyll, and yet it survives and reproduces successfully using an entirely different strategy. Scientists studying it are fascinated by how such an extreme evolutionary path developed, and it continues to challenge and expand our basic definitions of what a plant actually is. In some regions, the fruit of Hydnora africana is also traditionally harvested and eaten, valued for its taste once roasted. Caution. Hydnora africana is not available for ordinary home cultivation and would be extremely difficult to grow, even if it were, given its highly specific parasitic relationship with particular host shrub species. It exists almost exclusively in its native habitat in South Africa and Namibia. This is a plant to know about, marvel at, and seek out in specialized botanical literature, rather than one to plant in your own garden. But it is, without question, one of the most genuinely impossible-seeming organisms in the entire plant kingdom. A plant that has given up nearly everything we think defines a plant, and somehow thrives anyway. The perfect way to end this list. And that is our full list. 10 plants with powers that genuinely seem impossible. The Venus flytrap, the sensitive plant, the resurrection plant, daughter, the giant pitcher plant, the silver sword, the bristlecone pine, the giant water lily, the Wollemi pine, and Hydnora africana. I hope this video has given you a genuinely new appreciation for just how extraordinary, intelligent, and resilient the plant world really is. These are not science fiction creations. They are real, living organisms that have been quietly evolving these incredible abilities for millions of years, long before we ever showed up to marvel at them. The next time you walk past a plant, any plant, I hope you remember that even the most ordinary-looking greenery around you carries within it millions of years of extraordinary evolutionary problem-solving. Nature never stops being amazing if you take the time to look closely. Thank you so much for watching this video. It genuinely means a great deal to me that you spent this time with me today, and I hope you leave feeling as amazed as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this video reach more people who would love discovering these plants just as much as you did. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and join our community. New videos go up every week, all about the incredible, surprising, and sometimes downright unbelievable world of plants. Let me know in the comments which plant on this list amazed you the most. I read every single comment, and I genuinely love hearing what surprised you. I will see you in the very next video. Until then, stay curious, keep growing, and never stop being amazed. See you soon.